So, the Europe Builds podcast is all about uncovering the untapped knowledge within the European startup ecosystem. And there's no better place to be than the Doer Summit, where for the very first time, founders, investors, and operators are meeting up to turn their ideas into reality.
The timing also couldn't be better. Some European problems may persist, but we're finally seeing winds of change, from the new Commission's competitiveness compass to reducing internal market barriers. There's a lot of room for growth and a lot of room for hope. So for all of this and more, join us for this series of Europe Builds episodes showcasing some of the greatest founders, operators and investors from the Doers Summit.
Ariadne Velissaropoulou, Marina Bouki. It's so nice to have you here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So you're both investors turned into impact investors, I would say. And what we ask all speakers to do is like a very short intro of who you are.
I'm sure you've done this a couple of times these 2 days here at the Doers Summit.
Head of compliance here, head of marketing here.
Go for it, Ariadne.
So we are, after long careers, mostly outside of Greece, we came back to Greece to do a bunch of different things. Our passion is making investments in startups. We've made, we can go into the background, but let's actually look into the future. We have invested in 14 startups and looking for more. And we look for founders who are diverse, are doing something different. And we think they excite us and we think they're onto something. Mm-hmm.
Well, you said, I'm not going to go through my background, but you said, you are investors tend to impact investors. I would say we're making impact rather than being impact investors. Mm-hmm. And also we're contrarian these days because we invest in women. Mm-hmm. And we give our small tickets, but most importantly, we get a big kick out of the energy of, the founders and spending time with them.
I think that one of the best traits that any investor should have, right, is the instinct of finding out that an idea is really good, probably before everybody else does it. So the contrarianism, for many reasons, is something we like in investing, particularly when there's impact and against a certain tide. But I want to hear from both of you if there was an instance, like what is an instance where you backed an idea against the current? And why did you do it? So what was it that sparked your interest?
Oh, I'll talk about our first investment. It wasn't against the current. It was it was hitting all the right words. But so it was recycling. It was using blockchain. It was really striving for a better world. But we had some voices that not very consistent, haven't managed to raise the a lot of the first round after the Techstars, etc. But we fell in love with the founder. And it was the energy, it was the knowledge, it was the passion, the hustle. Will I do it again? Will we do it again? I don't know. But
we probably would. We probably would, because the hustle and the can-do and this fearless optimism and she falls down, she gets right back up. And she goes for it.
And actually, yes, it has become a cliche, but team is everything. And if you have a long-term perspective, and that's a good thing about being an angel, you have a long-term perspective and you can be there. Maybe it's not this one, maybe it's the next one, but you really want to be next to the people who have this additional grit.
And then at that stage, the team and the individual and what you're describing is the most important thing, right?
It's the only thing, really.
If that fails, the next thing might become a success. I've seen it kind of with a lot of founders I worked with, but definitely one thing. So I would like to ask you a question. So you've been kind of more, I would say, institutional investors turned into angels. How easy or hard was that change of gears?
Well, I was a banker turned to angel, which is even worse.
They had clipped your wings, I'm sure, in the banking sector. Yeah.
But now they've regrown these wings.
How easy it is? I don't know how easy it is. I think it is surely invigorating. It is surely something that gives you a lot of energy to go the day and do the extra thing. You don't have to take 15 meetings with startups. We don't have to see the next one. But it really, you become a better person by learning more. You become a more knowledgeable person by meeting teams with a vision. And I think that's what keeps you going.
So I'd add, I was a hedge funder turned angel investor. In the prior life, we looked at public markets. We had reams and reams of data and information. When you invest in startups, you just have founders, and we're so early stage. There's so little to rely on. So you end up relying on your judgment because there is nothing. It's not like the market has already figured this out. We have no idea. So that's one thing. The other thing, the going from the institutional world to our world is the flexibility to do only what we like to do, to look at companies only when we like the founders, to discard things for no reason except it just doesn't feel right. So that flexibility is wonderful.
And I want to answer a question in case one of my former colleagues and friends are hearing. Our ROI is negative because someone asked, what's your ROI?
So you already touched upon this idea of resilience as a very good trait for this founder, right? What are some of the other things that you're looking for? And you mentioned this idea of flexibility. You find founders you like. What is it that makes you like these founders? What are the traits that sort of make a founder stand out in your eyes?
The ability to communicate their vision. So one, they have to have a vision. What is it that they're trying to do? And then being able to communicate it. And here we have some disagreements amongst our little team, but the ability to go sell that vision, because the founder has to do all the selling in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that...
It's an interesting thing you're mentioning this because not every founder is always charismatic and communicative, and sometimes they're very obsessive beings that have really honed into this idea that they're really passionate about. They know that very well, but they kind of lack the skills to sell it.
Especially if they're technical founders as
well. Yes, so particularly in tech. Is that a no? Is that like a red flag? Or can you actually help the founders find this voice, find their vision, hone this?
If I have to say one bigger thing of all, compared to everything we have discussed, is coachability and adaptability.
Yeah.
So if this person understands that they need someone else next to them, or they need to get out there and push more, then absolutely. We can be there, we can find the right match, we can help them find the right match, or we can help them get the right, coaching, etc., to go and sell themselves. But if they don't get that, then it's a no.
Yeah.
And that links very well with, okay, so you put in the investment. You probably sit in some of the boards.
Formal or informal, because we're so early stage that they don't necessarily yet have a formal board. Yeah.
Post kind of giving out the money, like how do you see your role in helping them kind of grow?
Well, this is quite interesting because one of our early investments, we have tried to get involved from the beginning. And 2 years later, we're finally properly involved.
Oh, wow.
But it took 2 years and we think we could have offered some valuable advice earlier, but she wasn't willing to take it. We'll get...
But it was always open. Wasn't taking the advice, it was open to, provide information, etc. Yeah.
And then there are, we have a range of investments, a range of sizes, and a range of kind of timings. When we're really small investment and the founder has moved on and raised more money, we become small. But we're always willing to be as helpful as we can in the sense of network, door opening, and just looking at the deck and helping improve it.
Yeah.
I think that's one reason why we also, apart from doing this ourselves, which is what we started, we're also part of syndicates, we're also part of Biggest Thing, because you need to find the expertise and you also need to rely on someone else having expertise to help you found.
We haven't touched upon at all about the concept of syndicates. Could you share a bit about how that works and how you are using it in your strategy.
So informally, we've always had a network of people around us to whom we go for advice on any particular subject area. And informally, ideas and founders have come to us through our network, through people we know. More formally, we're both members of HEBAN, the Hellenic Business Angel Network. Marina's on the board of it. So we bring some of our founders to them. That we see all the deal flow that comes through there. We're members of female founders and funder syndicate called Blossom. We're part of Hermesa. Are we officially part of Hermesa?
No, but we're very close to Hermelsa and Alma and Araya Angels who have invested in the fund.
So that's in other regions, right?
Yes.
Yes, UK.
And here's the other thing about being an angel. We don't have to only invest in Greece or Southeast Europe. We can invest anywhere we find an interesting idea.
What's the most remote place you've actually invested?
I didn't invest, but I've been to the Faroe Islands for the Tonic conference.
Okay.
And I got pitched by 10 or 15 startups.
None of them made the Ariadne cut.
We actually have had follow-on meetings with a few of them. And we could still, there's that hotel person, we could still.
But if we shift our focus a little bit in Greece, so there's two interesting things here, right? One is the sort of imminent return, and I've heard this from many people, where eventually they've done a great career abroad, but there's something that brings them back. So I'm wondering what that was for you. And the second thing is the timing, right? So we are in an interesting time for the ecosystem here, I'm sure. So how did you see this timing for you, and how did you sort of contribute to the ecosystem growing even further?
So the coming back to Greece was, to a certain degree, happenstance. COVID, the turning points in careers, it just made sense to be here. The weather was nice, the food was nice, the people are wonderful. Yeah. And then the super cherry on the cake was that interesting things were happening in Greece, in the startup scene, in the digitization scene, reduction of bureaucracy, reforms. So it was a really fun time to be in Greece when you could be productive and you didn't have to work for the public sector and be part of that kind of side of things. We consider ourselves very, very lucky to be able to be in Greece and be doing interesting, productive things, I would say.
True. It was probably one of the only places that things were happening in Greece. I came, here after Brexit. Even if I'm a British citizen, I could have stayed there, but this was the place where things were happening. The rest of Europe was in a little bit of a winter, I would say. How did we help? Initially, just being out there and say, we're here, we're trying to help. And then we got plugged in the ecosystem, understood a bit. We put money in, which was, we showed that we're serious. And that was a big fact of our credibility as angels, that we're actually investing. And then offered, where relevant, offered connections and with our broader network, either startups or, the syndicates or the VC. I think a big bet for Greece right now, and I heard it in one of the panels yesterday, totally resonated for me. We've done with the Greeks, there's more to come for sure. Yeah. We've done with the Greek diaspora, there's more to come for sure. It's time to bring people to Greece, to grow the ecosystem here. Because it's not that it's small or it's not growing, things are happening, but we need new blood.
Yeah, and we need to lift the ceiling, right, much higher. We need to push that. But I'm curious also if you're both impact driven, sort of having impact back home in the motherland, let's say, is that also something special for you?
Yes, definitely. So one thing I will say, Greece is a smaller pond than some of the other ponds we've played in. Marina was in London for more than 20 years. I was in New York and then London and Geneva. Greece is a smaller place, but every movement that you make has a much bigger impact. So that in itself is really nice. And then being at a stage in our careers that we can actually make investments because they make sense for the world. We feel we sleep well at night. We think that good things will come of them in addition to profits. Yeah. That's been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
I have one question, which is, What is the one question that you wish people asked you as kind of impact investors and they keep not asking you? What would that question be that you really need to get it answered?
With impact, there's always the question of measurement. How do you measure impact? Because it's a tricky one. Because as I said, some of our investments, we just feel good about what they're doing. It might be circular economy, it might be recycling, but so how do you define it? How do you measure it? And I don't pretend that we have a perfect answer, but that would be one of them.
Well, I'll avoid the question and I'll say I can share with you what Ariadne wants people to say to her, not ask her. She wants people to say that she's very pretty because she always says to everyone, Marina is the brains in this duo.
Okay, so we have the brains here and the beauty.
I'm going to make a shift and ask a question that sadly has been more political. I don't think it should be, but in the current anti-DEI sort of movement globally, you went as far as hearing some big companies saying we need to bring back masculine energy into entrepreneurship. Like we're really lacking masculine energy, I'm sure. Yes. So how do you see this like global change in narrative? Do you think it's here to stay, or do you think it's like a temporary thing? And what do you do through your investing to sort of counter that? Let's say.
I mean, it's great that you're asking it. And I think the reason I mentioned initially that we're contrarian is that we invest in women. Out of our 14 investments, 12 are female founders and co-founders, and the rest have a link to female. I was really saddened by the news and everything that has happened initially. But I think, because I always worked in male-dominated environments, I never believe in quotas. I think maybe because it will bring more quality than noise, because everybody was a little bit tired about the DEI and the initiatives. Maybe now we'll be able to trying to see the glass half full, we'll do more meaningful initiatives, because it's not about DEI and male and female. It's about avoiding groupthink. It's about, you had this discussion yesterday in your panel, diversity, where is needed and how can we make the most out of it.
Yeah.
I'm also going to add to this, because we're impact for this, we're diversity for that, but we're also here to win. I'm here to win. I'm here to make money. And if I win because the other guys forget that diversity makes better teams, that's fine with me. I'll have the more diverse team. I'll have the more diverse portfolio. I'll back the better founders, and they can do whatever they want.
They can keep their unconscious bias. It's probably not going to work for them really well.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate for the environment. And here I'll go with what Obama said, which is the arc of progress is not...
it's not linear, yeah. Exactly. And in Greece, do you see this being different than the global conversation?
I feel like we're always a little bit behind in Greece. So in Greece, we're still talking about diversity in a positive way.
Before the anti-woke era. So let's check again in 3 years.
A decade behind or something.
Yeah.
I would love to close us off with, so we're at the Doer Summit today. Next year, if we have you as speakers, where would you like your...
At the center stage, I would like to be.
Okay. But in terms of impact investing, like where would you like to be?
One of my issues that I support is immigrants. So I would like to have more founders who have struggled and overcome those struggles, whether they came from far away or I would just like to see more of our portfolio be underrepresented founders who are winners because they have struggled and they have survived.
I love that.
I totally agree with you. And I see this happening in 5 or 10 years. And you have such a short time frame. What are we doing? What would like to see?
Answer the question as if it's 5 years.
Next year.
5 years.
1 year is short.
I would like to have to have an addition, but also have smaller failures.
Ariadne and Marina, it was lovely having you here with us today at the Doer Summit.
Thank you very much, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of EUROPEBUILDS, where we show that the European ecosystem is no longer an underdog story.
If you liked our episode and want to hear more, follow EUROPEBUILDS on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Born's YouTube channel.